Get ready, major shifts are happening right now. Trump confirms Patriot missiles are on the way to Ukraine and the countdown has officially begun. At the same time, Germany appears to have flipped the script. Chancellor Friedrich Merz respondedly convinced Trump to approve the first US arms package for Ukraine since to return in the White House. But while the West mobilizes, Russia unleashes terror once again. Deadly strikes hit civilians and energy infrastructure across 6 Ukrainian regions. This is Ukraine Today. I'm Zaroslava Kolesnikova, here to bring you the truth behind the headlines. Stay tuned, stay strong and stay with Ukraine. Patriot missiles are finally on the move and they are heading to Ukraine. President Donald Trump confirmed that the promised air defense systems are already being shipped out by allies. The best part, not a single dollar will come from the US budget. NATO and EU nations are converting the full cost. So what are the details behind this bold agreement and how soon will the weapons hit the battlefield? Let's break it down.
The US will primarily focus on supplying weapons to Ukraine through its European partners, even when selling arms to other countries. This was stated by US Ambassador to NATO Matthew Whitaker on Fox News.
We gave Russia a chance for peace, because President Trump is a peacemaker. But if you want war, we will arm Ukraine, and Europe will pay for it. I think this is a big step toward finally ending this war. If Putin wants to continue fighting in Ukraine, the US will sell Europe weapons that Ukraine can use to defend itself.
Let us recall that on the 14th of July, US President Donald Trump announced the delivery of new weapons to Ukraine worth billions of dollars and threatened sanctions against buyers of Russian exports if Russia does not agree to a peace deal. He stated this during negotiations with NATO Chief Mark Rutte at the White House and noted that the US produces the best military equipment in the world. It will be manufactured for NATO and made available for further delivery to Ukraine.
We will send them Patriots, which they desperately need, because Putin has really surprised a lot of people. He speaks well, but in the evening he bombs everyone. So there is a bit of a problem here. I don't like it.
According to NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, he has been in contact with many European countries that intend to take part in the deal. Specifically, these are Finland, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands and Canada.
We had a NATO summit which became a huge foreign policy success for President Trump. The Europeans took a step forward. And here again, the Europeans are stepping up, taking on the responsibility to pay for this. What Putin is now hearing from the American president and from the Europeans is that we will do everything possible to make Ukraine as strong as possible when peace agreements are reached or when these negotiations begin. I think that President Trump and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte pointed out that European countries have Patriot systems, and these Patriot systems from European countries which are located quite nearby can quickly be sent to Ukraine, and the Europeans will then purchase replacements from American manufacturers. So this is very good for all parties involved.
According to Axios, Washington intends to sell NATO the first package of weapons for Ukraine worth $10 billion in the first wave. It includes missiles, air defense systems, and artillery shells. However, as US President Donald Trump stated as early as the 15th of July, this package will not include long-range missiles, specifically the air-to-surface JASSM missiles. Their range is 800 kilometers.
If the request is approved, these cruise missiles capable of evading radar will likely be launched from Ukrainian F-16 fighter jets. This would significantly strengthen US support for Ukraine. Ukraine may be sent the standard version of the JASSM, which has a range of 370 kilometers, from a publication by The Times.
Germany will play a decisive role, said German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in response to US President Donald Trump's initiative to supply weapons to Ukraine on a large scale.
We are doing this in our own interests. This will help Ukraine defend itself against Russian bombing terror. This is the only way to increase pressure on Moscow in order to ultimately reach a peace agreement. Finally, we are showing that we are moving in the same direction as our security partners. Friedrich Merz, Chancellor of Germany, on social network X.
As reported by the German publication Spiegel, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius had been working for months to reach an agreement acceptable to the United States regarding weapons for Ukraine. The German defense minister also stated that Germany has sent a letter to the United States requesting the possible purchase of long-range Typhoon missiles. According to him, these missiles could serve as an interim solution until 2026, when Germany and other European countries will have developed their own long-range weapons.
A few weeks ago, I spoke with Pete Huxley about this topic over the phone and suggested that Germany could purchase 2 Patriot systems from the Americans and deliver them directly to Ukraine, simply based on the fact that, given our situation with the supply and maintenance of Patriot systems, we are not in a position to transfer another system, but we are ready to purchase 2 such systems due to a need that none of us can ignore. Ukraine needs more systems.
Meanwhile, Ukraine has received its first Patriot armored personnel carriers from Latvia. This was reported by Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Mihal after a meeting with Latvian Prime Minister Ivica Siliha on July 15th. According to him, in total, we are talking about 42 units of such and other equipment, with a total value of about 70 million euros. Kristina Dombrovska for Freedom Television Channel.
A ticking clock for the Kremlin. US President Donald Trump has warned that sweeping new sanctions against Russia could come sooner than expected, possibly well before the 50-day timeline he previously mentioned. What exactly is in the store for Putin if he deadlines hits? And why is Washington accelerating pressure now? Let's break it down.
Trump is tired of Putin's hypocrisy and has therefore changed his rhetoric towards Russia, as well as his policy on providing Ukraine with more powerful weapons, the Times reports. The US president has essentially issued an ultimatum stating that he will impose harsh tariffs on Russia and 100% secondary tariffs on its trading partners if a peace agreement is not reached within 50 days.
I don't think 50 days is a very long time, and it could happen sooner. I don't think 50 days is a very long time.
In fact, Putin is afraid of the Americans. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said this in an interview with Newsmax television. According to him, after the arrival in Ukraine of the US President's special representative Keith Kellogg, Russia reduced the number of attacks on Ukraine.
People are already joking about this. They say we should give General Kellogg a Ukrainian passport and keep him here, and that Americans should visit us more often, because then Russia will bomb us less. What does this mean? It means that Putin is deliberately bombing civilians. It means one thing. Putin is afraid of America. I've been saying this all along, and I've told the president as well. In any case, Putin is afraid of America, and I'm sure of it. Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, in an interview with Newsmax television.
Volodymyr Zelensky also emphasized that if Putin does not draw conclusions, President Trump will indeed impose powerful sanctions that cannot be circumvented, primarily in the energy and banking sectors.
Well, if we don't make a deal in 50 days, things will get very bad. Yes, tariffs and other sanctions will remain in place.
Despite the fact that Donald Trump was late to realize that Russia has no intention of negotiating for peace, his new policy could become a turning point in Ukraine's ability to wage a defensive war. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni gave a positive assessment of Donald Trump's shift in rhetoric towards Putin, noting that Russia still refuses to make concessions regarding a peaceful resolution of the war against Ukraine.
As you know, Ukraine has repeatedly agreed to an unconditional ceasefire and has expressed its willingness to come to the negotiating table. However, on the other hand, we still do not see any progress. Moreover, Russia continues to strike at the civilian population, and these attacks are becoming increasingly intense and brutal, demonstrating just how little Moscow is prepared for the peace we all strive for. And this is despite the Trump administration's willingness to engage in dialogue, which Putin chose to reject. Today we are seeing a change in the US position, and we welcome it positively.
Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski also believes that Donald Trump's recent statements indicate his realization that Russia does not want peace in Ukraine. The US president has come to the same conclusions that the countries of the European Union had previously reached, according to the head of Poland's Foreign Policy Department.
We hope that this 50-day period before the possible introduction of American sanctions will be a time to increase pressure on the Russian Federation so that it finally comes to its senses, namely, that Putin does not want peace. Ukraine agrees to an unconditional ceasefire, and the only language Putin understands is the language of pressure. Radosław Sikorski, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Poland, and a report from the Polish press agency.
Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas believes that the head of the Kremlin continues the war for domestic political reasons. For Putin and his regime, fear is the only way to stay in power. Therefore, he believes that the only way to force Putin to stop the war is through strength, and that American President Donald Trump did not realize this immediately.
Like some European leaders, when the war broke out, the American president thought he could achieve something by talking to Putin. But I think now they have realized that this is not the case. We Europeans know that Russia cannot be trusted. Kaja Kallas, Prime Minister of Estonia, in an interview with Corriere della Sera.
Donald Trump made his statement demanding peace in Ukraine on July 14th. To achieve this, he gave Russia 50 days. The head of the White House also noted that several times such an agreement had already fallen through precisely because of the Kremlin's actions. But now the President of the United States gives a 100% guarantee that he will end this war.
Natalia Husuk, Volodymyr Stegelov for Freedom Television Channel.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now. Berlin changes the game. According to the Wall Street Journal, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has managed to win over President Donald Trump, convincing him to green-light the new US weapons for Ukraine. This marks the first official defense deal from Washington since Trump's return to office. How did Merz pull it off? What weapons are coming and who's footing the bill? Let's dive into the details.
5 Patriot air defense missile systems. That is exactly how many US President Donald Trump offered to sell to German Chancellor Friedrich Merz to strengthen Ukraine's air defense. According to the Wall Street Journal, the offer was made on the evening of the 11th of July, right after Trump saw video footage of yet another round of Russian attacks on Ukraine. And although it was primarily the Russian terrorist attacks that prompted Trump to make this decision, German Federal Chancellor Friedrich Merz also played a significant role. According to the publication, it was his approach and business background that helped build a relationship of trust with Trump. The chancellor managed to convince the American president that Berlin was ready to finance the deliveries. Recent constitutional reforms in Germany, which opened up the possibility for borrowing a step that was unavailable to his predecessors, also contributed to this.
Merz found the right approach. Now he can call Trump on his mobile phone and use checkbook diplomacy. Unlike Macron and others, he not only talks but also offers money. Nico Lange, former head of the office of the German Minister of Defense, in a comment to the Wall Street Journal.
We are hearing a very clear stance, a leadership position from Mr. Merz in terms of Germany being ready to return to the role of a dominant country in Europe, much an independent actor that will invest heavily in defense and actively reshape Europe's security architecture. And accordingly, of course, in this regard, Germany and Mr. Merz personally fully support Ukraine.
After the conversation with Trump, Germany will likely transfer 2 Patriot systems from its own stockpiles to Ukraine, and in return will order new ones from the US at an estimated cost of about $2 billion, writes the Wall Street Journal. Norway will pay for another American system. As previously stated by NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, Denmark, Finland and Canada may also join in financing the additional systems.
It can be stated that indeed the process has already moved into the realm of implementation, into the realm of concrete action. And this means that indeed we are not just at the stage of making decisions or expressing political will, but at the stage where these decisions at varying speeds will be carried out. There are weapons already in Europe that can be delivered to Ukraine quite quickly. As Donald Trump himself has said, this could take literally just a few days. There are also weapons that may take longer to reach Ukraine.
Close aides to the German Chancellor, according to the Wall Street Journal, are convinced that the key factor behind the American president's complete reversal of his position on Russia's aggression against Ukraine and his agreement to provide military aid to Kyiv was Merz's willingness to pay for American weapons for Kyiv. Previously, the German Chancellor repeatedly stated that Berlin would support Ukraine for as long as necessary and is also ready to play a decisive role in purchasing Patriot systems to protect Ukrainian airspace.
We are doing this in our own interests. It will help Ukraine defend itself against Russian bombing terror. This is the only way to increase pressure on Moscow so that it ultimately agrees to peace negotiations. Finally, we will show that we are moving in the same direction as our security policy partners. Friedrich Merz, Federal Chancellor of Germany, on social network X.
American air defense systems are not the only weapons that will be sent to Ukraine as part of the new agreements with the Donald Trump administration. However, Berlin will not disclose details about them, stated German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius after meeting with his American counterpart in Washington. It would be wrong to talk about this publicly right now, he noted.
We have agreed to keep this confidential until it becomes clear what the results will be in the coming weeks. Speaking about this publicly right now would be the wrong approach. We want to become more unpredictable in what we do.
German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius also confirmed that Europe will, I quote, have to open its wallets wider and faster to purchase weapons for the Ukrainian armed forces. According to him, Washington is no longer going to pay for these deliveries. The responsibility for them will fall on the European allies. Although the final parameters are still being discussed, working groups are expected to agree on all the details in the near future. Nikita Skoblikov for Freedom Television Channel.
Once again, Russia rains terror from the skies. 6 Ukrainian regions came under massive missile and drone attacks overnight, targeting not just infrastructure but innocent civilians. Lives lost, families torn apart, homes and power stations destroyed. How many more lives must be shattered before the world says enough? Details ahead.
In Kryvyi Rih, which is in the Dnipropetrovsk region, a 17-year-old boy was seriously injured as a result of a Russian shelling. Doctors are fighting for his life. The occupiers struck the city with ballistic missiles and drones. According to local authorities, Russia launched a total of 28 Shahed drones at Kryvyi Rih overnight into Wednesday. There is damage to civilian infrastructure.
As a result of the attack, an industrial facility was destroyed. There were no casualties among the employees, as they were in shelters during the alert. Several fires broke out, infrastructure was damaged, several districts of the city lost power, and the water supply was switched to generators. All emergency municipal services have been dispatched to the sites of the strikes. All the fires have already been extinguished. Power supply has been restored and water is also available. Trams and trolleybuses are operating. Alexander Vilkul, mayor of Kryvyi Rih, on Telegram.
This morning, Russian forces also shelled Nikopol in the Dnipropetrovsk region with artillery. A woman was killed, and 5 more people were injured. According to the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, all those injured received medical assistance. In addition, civilian infrastructure and residential apartment buildings were damaged. Eight people were injured as a result of the overnight attack on Vinnytsia. The wounded are receiving the necessary medical care, said Mayor Serhiy Morgunov. He also reported that Russia used attack drones. There have been recorded strikes on industrial infrastructure facilities. In addition, 4 residential houses were damaged in the Vinnytsia region. Due to the fires, air quality has significantly deteriorated. As a result of the Russian attack in Vinnytsia, a factory owned by Polish business was also damaged. The enterprise was engaged in wood processing. This was stated by Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski, and he emphasized, there are casualties at the factory.
The head of the plant just informed me that this was a deliberate attack from 3 directions. There are injured, including 2 people with severe burns. Ukrainian emergency services are working at the scene, and representatives of our consulate are also present. Putin's criminal war is approaching our borders. Radosław Sikorski, Poland's Minister of Foreign Affairs, on social network X.
The occupiers also attacked Kramatorsk in the Donetsk region with drones. According to the city military administration, Russian forces launched 6 Giran-2 UAVs and deliberately targeted residential areas and the industrial zone. Several apartment buildings, a kindergarten, road infrastructure, facilities of a private enterprise, and warehouse premises were damaged.
That's all for today on Ukraine Today. If you want to support our mission, like, comment and share this video. Consider becoming a channel sponsor. Your support keeps the truth alive. Stay strong, stay informed and stay with Ukraine.